My sister eloped. I gave her a smaller wedding gift. Huge mistake? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be the oldest sibling by a landslide? My parents had me when they were really young, and we are still together now. They also had 2 more kids, my sisters Katie and Jess, later on. I'm 15 and 17 years older than them, respectively. You see, because of the age gap, we didn't really grow up together, and sometimes I feel more like an uncle than a big brother to them. I've been fortunate in my career to do relatively well, and I've typically been pretty generous with them when it comes to things like birthdays, Christmas, and graduations. But then my sister Katie got married 2 summers ago and had your typical traditional wedding. I'd guess around 125 people were there. It was very nice and definitely not cheap. I don't know how much they spent, but I know my parents and her husband's family only were able to contribute about half the cost. The rest was my sister and her husband paying for it. Suddenly they were super cool and let me and my wife bring our 2 kids, even though I later found out the venue charged the same for kids as adults for the food and everything. In that moment, it meant a lot, and I didn't want their inclusion to be a burden, so my wife and I gifted them $500 as a wedding present to cover our plates, plus a little extra. And then, my sister Jess, who has always been more low-key, got engaged. She told us all she would likely elope, and nobody tried to convince her otherwise because it made sense for them. They aren't flashy and have always seemed pretty frugal. They are definitely not the type to throw a big wedding that costs tens of thousands. Just moments later, they announced a couple of weeks ago that they had eloped in the mountains with just them and the necessary witnesses. I was happy for them and didn't feel like I missed out on anything. I've been to enough weddings that I don't have FOMO. I'm just happy they had what felt right for them. And then, since they didn't have a wedding, I didn't think to get them a wedding present because, no wedding, but then they did just go under contract on their first home together. So my wife and I got them a $100 gift card to Home Depot. I remember when I first bought my first home, there were a lot of home improvement stuff, and I made about 100 trips there, so I thought it would be a nice gift. To everyone's surprise, she asked Katie what they got for their wedding, and she told them and now felt a certain way about our gift to them. She made a comment about feeling like their marriage wasn't respected enough because they didn't throw a big party and said it felt like I was showing favoritism. I told her I gave Katie more because she hosted my whole family and I know how expensive that is, having paid for my own wedding. At that precise instant, Jess kind of rolled her eyes and walked away after that interaction, and we haven't talked about it since. That was this past Sunday. I never do this, and here's why. I thought it would be understood that the situations were just different, and it's unreasonable to expect the same generosity when you don't give any generosity, aka hosting and feeding people, by not having a traditional wedding and not inviting us to celebrate with them. Maybe I am wrong, though, so I wanted some neutral opinions.